Alright, in this video we're going to be learning how to use acrylic paint to create skin tones using these three characters from Star Wars. The paint that I'm using is two varieties of paint based on what we have here in the school. I have the daler-rowney System 3 acrylics and the Specialist Craft X4 Artist Acrylic. Okay. These paints are all good student quality paints and achieve fairly good outcomes. I am working on a canvas textured paper that has a primed surface, so it's better at not absorbing the paint but rather letting the paint sit on the surface. Now the paint colors that I'm using for this demo, I'm trying to stick to the four main colors for making shadows. However, I've added in one extra one this time. So I have titanium white, I have a naphtha red. Now I tend to use cadmium red at home, but I'm out of stock currently in the classroom, so we've got some naphtha red, which should work close to similar, but not exactly the same, obviously. I'm using ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. Now my extra color that I'm using in this video is Maple Yellow. This one's Maple Yellow Deep. I like a Naples Yellow when I'm doing skin tones because I find it's easier to get the right lightness without dulling it by adding white. So I prefer rather to add in a bit of the Naples Yellow. In this video I plan on making 3 distinct skin tones using these 5 colors. Okay. The big thing to remember when you're working with paint, never put too much paint on your palette. I've probably put it a little too much paint, quite frankly, but you should aim to have about a teaspoon worth of paint at most at a time because you don't want to waste it, and mix slowly to get the colors you want so that you don't have to mix in greater quantities. I also have with me a jar of water and 2 brushes. They're just standard student brushes, nothing fancy. Round, synthetic. I've got a size 2 and a size 6 because I'm working rather small for this painting. Alright, here we go. So I've noticed that I'm having trouble getting the darker values that I really want because of the naphtha red just not being a little bit more transparent than cadmium red is. So I'm grabbing some burnt umber. I would have actually preferred raw umber, but I don't seem to have any in the classroom just now. So I'm putting a little bit of burnt umber on my palette, and I'm hoping that will get me to the darker tones that I need to get this image right. Okay, so I made a couple mistakes when I was doing this painting. The first mistake I made is that I didn't tone the paper. Now, toning the paper means just taking a color that will show up in your image. So I would pick maybe the yellow ochre because it's a good skin tone color, and applying it to the whole page very lightly. You don't want it very strong, you just want it lightly across. The reason you do that is by putting it across the page and filling the whole thing in before painting. It means that all those little white spots that you can see showing up in the image, the texture of the canvas will disappear. It'll also help you give an overall warm or cool tone to your painting. So it's really important to tone your page first. The second issue I found is by not using colors I was familiar with. So my usual limited palette would usually be cadmium red instead of naphtha red, and so that caused me quite a bit of problems. And so I had to make do with the colors I had available to me. This means I wasn't able to get the full range of values that I usually like to get, which caused me a bit of an issue. So know your colors. Third thing is make sure you're comfortable with the size. So obviously these are quite small. They're smaller than A4, these paintings that I've been doing, so the figures are quite small as well. I tend to work larger generally, so this was a bit of a challenge for me to work with the brushes, especially because I don't paint with acrylics very often, and I have forgotten how gloopy they can be at times. So just keep that in mind, that as you're working, you need to do a couple of things to make sure that you're all ready, which is know your materials, tone your paper, and practice on the scale that you plan on making your artwork on.